videos now on guitar pedal boards. I thought I would do one covering my bass pedal board, which uses a lot fewer pedals. I'm not a big bass pedal guy. If you play funk or something, you need a lot more by way of envelope filters and wahs and things maybe. But these are the ones I use. They're mostly all for tone shaping. I don't use a lot of effects on bass. But let's dive in. First up, I have a tuner, same way that I would on any pedal board. This is just the tuner I took off my guitar pedal board when I got a new, better one. And then second up, I have a compressor. This Buddha Chakra compressor came pretty highly recommended by a dude who does nothing but bass compressor reviews. Here's without the compressor, my unprocessed bass tone. And then here's with the compressor on. So I have it dialed in pretty straight, most of the knobs straight up, and then I have the attack where it's, what I'm trying to mainly do with the compressor is dampen my attack so that I don't clip when I'm recording or something. So it kind of evens out the first attack of my note and then otherwise raises the volume a little bit, but I don't have it on too strong. And then second up, I've got this super octave OC3. A lot of bass players use these, but I haven't really figured out for what yet. The reason it's on my board is actually for the guitar bass trick that I cover in a different video. I just thought I'd keep it handy in case I needed to run a guitar into it as a fake bass player. But since I do have it on here, I went ahead and dialed it in for mostly 1 octave down and then very little direct signal, so it's pretty much just shifting me an octave down. The lower octave on this pedal sounds really artificial, but my understanding is that what people mostly use that for is take advantage of that artificial sound and get like kind of a synth bass tone. So since it's shifting down an octave, I'm going to play higher up, because if you play really low, it's just going to be muddy like this. But if you do up here, you can get these kind of artificial synth tones. So I don't really use that much. Sometimes it's cool to make kind of a keyboard sounding pedal note, like. But it's mostly on here for that guitar related trick that I cover elsewhere. And then the heart of this pedal board, basically my bass amp, is this VT Bass DI by Tech 21. It is incredible. And it has totally replaced any kind of DI or bass amp for me. It's the central processing unit of my board here. And what this does is emulates a Ampeg VT amp. So it gives you, it's got everything from, it's got speaker emulation built in, and then it also has a bunch of tone characteristics, and it can add some gain. I have it dialed in relatively clean, and then with the character knob kind of lower like this, which gives it more of a vintage tone. So here's without it. And then here's with. So it sounds fantastic. I love this pedal. There's a lot of different sounds you can get out of it. This is how I keep it set up most of the time. But if you raise the character, it gets a little bit more, I don't know, Rage Against the Machine sounding. And then if you raise the character and raise the drive, it gets really like modern rock gain. So you can you have to lower the level control when you raise these that much, because otherwise it would be very loud. And then with the character a little lower like this, it's a lot more of kind of just a old school tube amp. And I like to keep the mid rolled off, otherwise it sounds more like this. which is actually kind of nice too, but I'm not a big fan of mids. So that VT is a huge part of what I'm doing here, and it's got some other controls I don't really use. Like you can turn off what's called the bite. But I like having it on, so I always leave it on. And you can defeat the speaker emulation here. If you were to actually run it into an amp and you didn't want to have like speaker emulation going into a real speaker, you can defeat that and it. But I always leave it on because I'm never using it with an amp, so far at least. And then the final pedal in my chain here is the Electro Harmonix Bass Big Muff, which is a fuzz. And that, as you might have heard a second ago, that VT bass can get a pretty respectable fuzz going on, but I like to keep it clean and then have a fuzz pedal separate so that I can kick it on and off throughout a song. And mostly I keep it dialed in with the gain kind of lowish, like this. But sometimes I crank it for effect, and you can go all the way up here. And what I like about this bass Big Muff more than anything is there's a switch in the middle here. It says dry, and if you have that switched on, it passes through your dry signal unaffected, and then on top of it a fuzz signal, so it keeps a lot of the clarity, because you can still hear my unprocessed tone and then also the fuzz on top of it. Whereas if I turn that off and it's only fuzz, you get this. But I like to keep some dry tone going through as well. And I mostly only use this when I'm playing metal or something. But it's nice to have some kind of a grit that I can kick on for the bass. And then one final note, I don't really like playing bass with a pick, but sometimes it's the sound that I'm going for. And so I don't use them often enough to always have one available, but I put in this little pick holder right there with some kind of thicker Dunlop picks in it. And that way they're on my board and they're always kind of nearby if I need one, but I don't have to constantly have one like on hand exactly. So that's just kind of a bonus. Like I have it up here out of the way and just have some picks available all the time. In terms of how this board is rigged up, I have the whole thing going off of a one spot, which goes to my tuner, and then I just have power running from it to each other pedal. And then the board itself is actually homemade. My dad made this, and what I did was get like a flight case from the hardware store, and he cut this wooden pedal board to fit and then gave it like an edge, and I've put some Velcro on here to hold the pedals on, but this is just a piece of wood with some improvements and then a 6-plug outlet bolted onto it. So like I said at the front, it's pretty much tone shaping controls. I don't have a flanger or a phaser or anything on here. It'd be kind of cool, but it's mostly just to make the bass sound better. And I'm using Seymour Duncan quarter-pound pickups, so the pickups are nice. It's a nice quality sound that's coming out of my bass, but unprocessed, it still sounds a little flat like this. Whereas with my compressor and my VT on, it's like this. So that's a kind of a bare bones bass pedal board.